founder of Green Cup Design.
And I'm Will, the content writer for Green Cup Design.
And we're going to discuss, just real quick, why blog posting is such a big deal for your small business. So we were just discussing a minute ago that like blog posting is huge. And I mean, you do this every day, right?
Yes.
But so like blog posting isn't just to make noise. It's not about your cat. It's not there to be fluffy or anything. There's actually a really good purpose for having a blog.
Right.
We talked about 3 pillars, right?
Yes.
So, do you remember what those pillars were?
Yeah.
We touched on? I'll try to remember.
There's static content that just lives on the website that's for people who are bouncing around and who've already found you to read and cherish and entertain themselves with and gain knowledge. And blog posts, which can be used for SEO purposes and search engine optimization. Same thing.
Yeah.
And then there is content geared towards social media. And those 3 things can be one and the same, or content can be geared towards one of those 3 things, depending on what your business is actually looking to do with their content.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, we were talking about like static content doesn't really drive people to your website.
No.
You know, like why would I go back to a website that's just the same all the time?
Right. And so static content, the advantage is it doesn't have to be kind of outward facing. It can be there to help decrypt your product. I mean, a lot of times brand identity is so distilled and it's so compressed, whereas static content can help re-expand it. So if someone comes to your website and thinks that they like what you're doing, but you've given them a sentence explaining what you do and the kind of personality behind it, a well-written piece of static content can then help explain who you are and what you do and why you're a great fit for your customers.
Right. Like why am I on your website all of a sudden?
Right. And so stuff like that people may not come back to read more than once, but it's the type of thing that can function as a supplement to a landing page. And it's the type of thing that businesses might share with each other when recommending your company.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because so for example, for us, I'll get asked all the time, what do you guys do? What are your services? And I don't share our homepage, I share our services page, because that's actually what they need to know, but it's also honed in a way as breaks down what we're doing. So for content writing, it breaks down the fact that we do content writing, but we do a couple different types, and then, like you said, distills it for them.
Right. And then on the project I worked on with you recently, there were different landing pages for the different services of the company, and kind of explaining for customers exactly what they need from the company in very siloed ways.
So with blog posting, we're kind of accomplishing 2 different things. We're accomplishing interest for human beings.
Yes.
And things to read. But we're also garnering interest from Google. So why don't you talk about the human interest, and I'll just go into a little bit about the SEO of it.
Yeah. So in terms of human interest, a blog post can inform your audience about the industry, but it can also be a mouthpiece for what your company is passionate about. So not only can content really functions as your main way of communicating with your audience through your website specifically. There are different marketing strategies to reach people, but so a blog post can be used for social media, which I like to think of as almost branded content. So if you're hosting a blog article on your site and it's about something relevant to more than just your company, people will share that, people will like that, people will interact with that, and then every interaction is someone interacting with you. And everyone who clicks on that blog post then comes to your website and gets to know more about you through that.
Right.
so blog posting for social media is important, but also in terms of keeping up to date with the industry, you can tell people what's going on in their field.
Like the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, they probably have a blog that they keep because there's a lot of laws changing, but it's not just Michigan laws, it's laws for different areas. And so if they're looking at like how these things affect small businesses,
right,
you know, like that's a really good use of an industry style blog. So it's not
right.
I mean, it can be shareable, but it's not geared to be shareable. It's not.
Right, it's not geared in the same way that you're speaking directly to a single person or a single Facebook account. You're more so talking to single businesses, and an industry-related blog post can be more of a resource than anything else.
Yeah.
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 And that's the type of thing that people will say, oh, did you see that article on Green Cup about, you know, X, Y, or Z? And then they'll be going back to that as like a reference point almost.
Sure.
Yeah. Did you read that thing about brand design? Did you read that thing about
that weird thing that Veronica wrote at midnight because she couldn't sleep?
Exactly. That was great. Let's share that with other people.
It was hilarious. So then as far as SEO goes, search engine optimization. So like Google over the years has done everything that it can to gear its services towards human-centric results. So when you go into searching and then you can't find what you want, you don't use Google anymore, right? Like, why would I use Google if I could use like DuckDuckGo if they do a better job? So Google has to do the best job at getting human-centric results, which means that it wants as many details as it can get about what you're doing. So by having a blog, you can just basically narrow down the field constantly as far as what your company is about. So like if Google isn't sure at first if I don't know, about like your services or about what type of people or what have you, eventually by having a blog, you continue to reinforce and then maybe even add or subtract from the possibilities. And so Google can really target searchers to come to your website, people who actually might convert as opposed to just like an interloper.
Right.
So, yeah.
And in terms of increasing value, I mean, the more articles that are hosted on the site and the more relevant they are, and the more your articles are reacting to other things going on and linking to other sites, it does make your website more valuable. So when people look for it, you know, if you have this really valuable web property, it might be more valuable than your competitors as far as this valuable website is actually engaging with people and trying to make a connection and trying to stay up to date, whereas this other website is just, you know, a landing page with contact information.
Yeah, and a more engaging website is way more valuable as far as Google goes. Like Google puts so much more weight on that. So with regards to social media, we touched on that a little bit, but you know, writing blog posts in order to share on social media and also gearing social media back towards your blog posts, right? So you mentioned that there's kind of like a little bit of a science or a more specific way to do that.
Yeah, well, it can sometimes be different writing as well. Blog posts allow you to kind of be more personal with the people you interact with. And social media is about showing people something new, because on, you know, for Facebook, on Facebook there's a timeline full of different articles about whatever you're interested in. And if you follow a bunch of similar websites in an industry, you by necessity have to offer your audience something unique. And therefore, by creating unique content with the flavor of your company, that is personal, people will more likely click on your article than someone else's, and more likely share that. And also, another interesting thing about social media is it's a way to curate an online persona. And so the more personalities certain social media posts have, the more likely people are to share them, because it becomes a reflection of them.
Right.
And so by interjecting less formal language and humor every once in a while, social media posts become more about having your audience identify with your company, and having you be a reflection of their interests and what they care about.
Right. Right. And that's half the reason why people choose a company over another half the time.
Right.
Is that they can actually identify and feel comfortable with, like whomever they are feels comfortable with whatever you are as a company. So with blog posting, there's like kind of almost a side effect that happens when you are running a blog post that is a definite benefit.
Yeah, so the more blog posts you acquire, it almost builds your site up in a very covert way, which does factor into SEO, again, with engaging with your audience. But you can have a website that functions with very clean, very streamlined different menus and landing pages, but have an entire fleet of articles written in an article or a blog section that make your website really big and meaningful and impact a lot of people without affecting the kind of silos of a home page or a context page or an about page, which can be really great for not only SEO but creating a lot of different pages for which people can get to your website through.
And an authority, an expert voice, like
Absolutely.
So much content.
Yeah.
You've written so much about this. You must really know what you're doing.
Right.
We're hiring you.
Yeah, and if you're writing one article a week, that's 52 a year, and if each one is on a totally, maybe not a totally unique subject, but a unique subject within your industry, then you almost create a cohesive work through your company that people can bounce around between articles.
You actually just touched on a really good point that, like, a minimum of a weekly blog.
Yeah.
Like, if you do anything less than that, you're just going to lose interest in people and really the authority voice. Like, you won't build it without anything less than a week. In fact, more than weekly, twice a week, 3 times a week. That's where you start getting into some really good sweet spots, depending on your industry, of course. But
Right.
yeah. I'm Veronica.
And I'm Will.
And this was a Green Cup Design tidbit. Bling.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
You can cut that part out.
Yeah, sorry, trailed off there.
That's okay. Put on your game face.
Yeah. Again, sorry, trailing off. Yeah,
That was
I'm trying
a
to
good
figure out a way to,
point.
like, yeah. Yeah, but
Cut
I mean,
after Airfield.
yeah. Sorry.
Sweet. I love that works.
It's exciting.
Ninja. Nice little extra mention. All right.